I don't know why that box is up then. Okay, well, perfect. As long as you can see Albert, we're good to go. Steve, my man.
Yes. Hello. Happy Monday.
Wow, July 17th. It's weird to think that July is almost, well, it's half over and won't be around too much longer. So before we get into the fun stuff, just want to make sure that we cover the legal aspects here real quick. Just want to make sure that everybody knows that the information that we share during these webinars is for educational purposes only. If you need investment advice, please seek out a registered investment advisor or a broker or any other licensed individual that can help you out with that type of stuff. And there are plenty of them out there. So if you need investment advice, seek out the proper individual. Everything we share with you here today is for education purposes only. And as we had just mentioned, today is the first day of the test drive, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but you can sign up as late as Wednesday to get the 5 full trading days. So if you haven't signed up yet, if you're kicking the tires, haven't signed up for the test drive, by all means, take advantage. 5 full days of access, only $8.88. So that's going to be going on all week and continuing for a couple of days in the next week. So before we get into the nitty-gritty here, you know, it's just not about the technology. It's about the community that we've built around the technology. So it all kind of starts off with Barry's Trading Room at the top there, moderated by Mr. Barry Anderson, who does a fantastic job at managing a crowd of 500-600 people in the trading room, as well as sharing his trading techniques and giving people guidance and teaching them how to use the software as well with real-time, real-world examples. So there's just no substitute for that. And of course today it's the office hours with myself and Steve. Steve takes the helm tomorrow for trade of the week. He's got Andy riding shotgun. And then as always on Wednesdays we've got CEO Dan Merkin along with CTO Brad Williams to change things up a bit. Andy takes it back on Thursday. I ride shotgun with him. And then on Fridays, we used to not have any webinars, and now we have one that goes for 3 hours every Friday, 11 to 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 to 11 Pacific Standard Time, where it's just pretty much a free-for-all. You can come in there and ask, well, I won't say any questions. We don't do a lot of the Brokerage Plus support in there. But for anything else trade ideas related, that's where you come. It's always a party, so if you haven't been taking advantage, you might want to check it out. And of course, during the open house or the test drive, we're doing one of these every single day. Today was the first one. We'll have one going on tomorrow, 7 to 11 Pacific Standard, 10 to 2 Eastern Time. And once again, just kind of wanted to show you guys that what we're doing is resonating not only with you guys, but the rest of the investment community with our AI. This is when we brought Holly the AI online, and you can see our subscriber growth pretty much going inverted here, and really shows no signs of stopping, because not only is it Holly who we're constantly improving upon, but it's a litany of other things that we bring to the shooting match here. We're constantly improving the software. We recently launched the surfing functionality, which people are really liking. So just wanted to, number one, show you guys what you're a part of and say thank you as well. All right. So Steve, if you want to give us a little breakdown of what these indices have been doing, I'm going to kick it over to you real quick.
Sure.
And what a change of pace we've seen lately.
Grab monitor 1. All right, here we are. You should be seeing my monitor. Let's just start off with SPY. This trend line has been discussed much over the last couple weeks, and it looks as if it's going to be a non-issue. It was an issue with the Qs, so much of an issue that it's come and gone. I've taken it off because that trend line that the Qs broke back here For all of you who were in the meeting last Monday, I said the same thing. I said we've got a lot of work to do. It's got to reclaim that downtrend line, and it's got to reclaim this short-term downtrend line. It did everything it had to and more, just took off like it was nothing. But, you know, there's always a but. There's a couple of caveats. I mean, today the relative volume was 0.6. So 60% of what the Qs normally do is what they finished with today, with kind of a little spinning top doji here after a big run up. Well, here's what's catching my eye is this big juicy gap back here. I mean, this is a 50% retracement from an eyeball perspective, 50% retracement from the bounce of support we've had down here to breaking through the downtrends and up to here. I would not mind seeing some sort of maybe a little bit of a give back and a backing and filling. Backing and filling means filling in gaps and such like that. So I put that arrow in there just to highlight that, you know, it's a very open area for technical retracement. This market is not going to continue to go forward every single day like it has. It needs to breathe, and this would be a perfect area for possible breath to come in maybe and fill a gap. So keep that in mind there on the Qs. The Qs definitely dodged a bullet from back here. They broke the trend line but never really broke full support. They regained their trend line basically back here, gapping above it in these last few days. So technically they have regained the confidence of the bulls and are once again frustrating the hell out of the bears. But the volume again today was pretty light. Been a pretty good run, 7 or 8 days right off the bounce there. We could be due for some sort of a breather or a pullback. SPY, little different story there. We went to all-time highs yesterday, Friday, and got close again today. So we're kind of just hanging out sideways here in the high end of the miraculous breakout that did occur last Friday, and so no real give back today in the spiders. This market is still fully intact for the bulls, locked and loaded, and I call it the zombie market with Andy. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you do to these red candles, you knock them with a couple of bullets and they just come right back. The bulls are in just complete zombie mode, and they've got one direction, and that's up in mind. Couple of side thoughts. You know, the IWM still hasn't participated yet, and if the market wants to continue to make new highs, I still have this blue line here. This is an active trade alert, price alert that we use, letting me know that if this triggers and goes off, well, it's going to be time to start looking at small cap stuff. If we get a new high in the IWM and we get a breakout, well, the stuff under $5 and the lower cap Russell 2000 ideas, those might start taking off. So chance favors the prepared mind, and that's what I'm trying to do here, is get myself prepared for the small caps if in fact the IWM does decide to break out of this. On a weekly chart, it's even more defined. So the IWM still very much poised and looking to try and break through that resistance level. The Dow, very similar to what the S&Ps did today, coming off their new highs on Friday, just give a little bit back and going sideways. But again, there is a breakaway gap here in the Dow, and there is a breakaway gap in the spiders, SPY, right here. So, you know, if the market does want to go 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and take a breath, backing and filling, well, these are the kind of levels that we need to be aware of. So if tomorrow brings a lot of weakness and some red candles and some selling, you know, we could be on our way for a possible test of this, any portion of this gap going back here. A couple of other thoughts real quick. Let's just go over last week's trade of the week. I'll touch on it again tomorrow, but it's kind of doing what the Dow and the spiders were doing. Beautiful breakout to all-time highs, and then gave back new all-time highs on Friday, gave a little bit back today, but sideways, there's nothing wrong with sideways. If PayPal wants to go sideways for a couple more days and build up some strength to push higher, so be it. Nothing to worry about here that I see so far. Nothing more than just a little consolidation after a big breakout in last week's trade of the week. Today's trade of the week this morning, this week's trade of the week, for lack of a better, is Herbalife. And again, we're kind of looking for a breakout to 52-week highs, but it's got a bit more of a short float component. PayPal didn't have much of a short float, but this one does. 34% of 90 million shares of Herbalife, including Bill Ackman, is short Herbalife, and I can tell you if this price triggers, I'm going to be paying full attention to it because we could see a short squeeze. Speaking of short squeezes, before I hand it back to Jamie,
I was just about to remind you.
for those of you that were in the office hours last Monday, I don't always give out trading ideas or markup ideas for a setup, but I did mention that Hertz, hopefully it's ringing a bell, some of you now that heard me say it, basically found off the trend change lubricant, and it's still on there today, even after this enormous 5-day run with a high short float. Well, Hertz was trading below this green line right here, and I said, hey, all right, Christopher remembers. I said, if there's one thing you guys want to write down in your cocktail napkin is going to be HTZ if it gets above that level, because the short squeeze possibility is there. And it was there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Really never look back. So for those of you who like to ask, hey, trade ideas, well, do you guys have any scans that work for swing trades? Well, when I talk about short squeezes can go on for a few days, just like the short squeeze of Weight Watchers continuing to go through highs. They can go on for days. So today I actually did find something that I like. So I'm going to leave you again today with Pandora. Pandora had earnings a day ago last week, so we got earnings behind us in Pandora. And if you want to see an inverted head and shoulders, that's kind of textbook action right there. So it's similar, you know, to what Hertz was doing back here, trying to put in a higher low and then break out above a recent high. Well, I'm doing the same thing with Pandora. Pandora's got 34% short the float. Bigger float, 200 million, but still 34% of it. If they get above this high right here at 949, I'm going to get an alert that's going to pop up and say another possible trend change in Pandora. 34% short could give us a 2 or 3 day squeeze, just like we saw in Hertz Corporation. So again, those trying to get a hold and get a feel for swing trading, if we can get a hold of a good short squeeze opportunity, those are things that don't just pop and drop one day for an intraday window of scalping day trading. No, they're going to want to go for a few extra days as the shorts basically lick their wounds and cover and work themselves out of these positions. So I'm glad that some of you recall HTZ last week. This week I'm going to give another one. It's going to be Pandora, basically above this high right here. So we're going to call it 952, 953, right around that area. All right, guys, I'm going to turn it back over to Jamie, who's got some stuff to talk about, and I'll man the question box.
All right, just grabbing that baton, Steve.
There you go.
All right, should have eyes back on my desktop now. So yeah, good stuff, Steve, good stuff. You know what, I have to remember, I've got some price alerts that I'm going to share with you guys at the end of the presentation here. Remind me, Steve, I don't have Pandora on there. I'll go ahead and throw that in there as well and just provide the cloud link at the end here.
Okay.
Okay, so Holly was very active today, and not only are we going to talk about what Holly did, but we're going to talk about something we haven't, you know, it's been going through my mind moving forward, but as we all know, those of you who attend regularly, Holly's about 1.5 years old, so you know we're still learning as well as we use and interact with the technology moving forward. So we're going to go over a little technique here that could prove pretty valuable moving forward about how we can take things from Holly today and carry them forward, all right, into our trading plan in the form of alerts on very interesting type setups. I'll give an example of that and then leave you guys with some price alerts from the stocks today that Holly triggered. That meet those qualifications. So, having said that, I just want to point out before we move on to Holly, this is what the opening compare count on the big cap movers was today. And for those of you who are new, I'll give a little synopsis of, well, what in the world is this thing that he's showing me right now? This is what we call a compare count window that you have access to within Trade Ideas. This one looks predominantly at the big cap stocks doing the high volume, either hitting highs and hitting lows. So it's really a customized tick indicator, if you will. All right. The tick indicator on the NYC is simply advancers versus decliners. This is working in the same vein, but only looking at the specific stocks that I qualify in the filter set. So this doesn't happen very often, but these were the readings from this compare count window after the opening 20 minutes, 50-50. So we had equal amounts of high volume selling and buying from what I can extrapolate as institutional type interest or extremely high volume, which it's kind of up in the air at that point. Usually we see a slight bias. Typically when the bias is below 55% one way or the other, that means the action will be to that side predominantly, but may not be very sustained. And when we start seeing readings above 55, encroaching on 60 and higher, well, those are typically the days where there's a whole lot of opportunity and a whole lot of continuation. But today, it didn't really give us a whole lot of information. And of course, we can see the market and what it did today, but more importantly, what Holly did today. And here we are looking at her P&L chart right here. Someday, I keep wishing upon a star where I can make this chart a little bit bigger. Hopefully it's coming soon, but we can see Holly's progression once she starts opening her positions and basically positioning herself in her little intraday hedge fund of positions. It was just off to the races today. No hesitation, no meandering around, profitability and dipping that back down into negativity, which is very common as she opens positions. It was just off to the races, and then we kind of flatlined out for the rest of the day. So this is risk off, which is Holly in her most conservative mode, obeying all of her stop losses and profit targets and things of that nature. And of course, a risk on today, it also was off to the races, took a little pause, and then even peaked out higher, got up to almost positive 2.5 points, right in that neighborhood. But as we can see here, I was told by my readings on the compare count window this morning that, well, could go either way today. We'll see what Holly does. But whatever might be on the table, what this tells me is take the cookies, because they might not be around on the next go around of the plate. All right, and that's exactly the way things kind of played out today. It doesn't always happen to this extreme, but a very interesting observation. If you were trying to hold all day, boom, you kind of hit a brick wall up here. Of course, we always exercise risk management on a trade-by-trade basis, and being in the position to take profits is the first part of the equation, and risk management is the second part of that. So very opposite yield curves compared to risk off and risk on today, but what a show it was. Holly came to the party with let's see, 9 longs and 2 shorts today, and of course we can see the shorts didn't even trigger 1 trade today, which doesn't surprise me at all. Those are very specific criteria, as are all of these strategies. 0 trades from the shorts today. Tailwind was the only long that produced 0 trades today. And of course, we didn't just have one strategy run away with everything today. It was a pretty even distribution. And early on, once Holly started opening these positions, we can notice something happening here. We talk about this all the time. When we see this many longs opened up in such a short period of time, I mean from 45 to 51, not quite 7 minutes, and not quite in the first 15 minutes, we had 6 open positions. And for a while there, Holly was batting 1,000. 6 open positions, they were all winners. That in and of itself can tell us a couple of things. Well, statistical probability kind of ebbs and flows just like the wind. And sometimes the wind is pushing strong and our sails catch and we get pushed downstream. Other times the wind dies. And today was a perfect example of pushing us into profitability, and that was pretty much it. Pretty much the rest of the day kind of in the doldrums, and then if we're holding all day, a significant reversal. And of course the stats today still not that, the only guy that underperformed here was the nickelback. So it only had 2 trades, one out of 2 for a 50%, but all these other guys slight outperform, slight underperform here, and then over for all these guys. So let's take a look at some of the individual trades here and how some of these setups occurred, because today was one of those days where we didn't have extremely strong volume, and it was like everything was kind of unfolding in slow motion today. Not only from Holly, let me get rid of that noise pollution, sorry about that. The only pitfall of living in Southern California is we hear noise with our open windows, so hopefully it's not too bad there. So let's take a look at this first one, not the first trade, but the first one on the way that I have it sorted here today, SRG. So here we are about, let's see here. Do I have, no wonder. I'm usually a 5-minute guy, and I'm like, why does my chart look so weird? Let me flip it back around here. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see this clearly. So we have SRG being spawned by Holly right here. And this is a setup that we see happen day in, day out with these Holly plays, because number one, what's the most important thing about Holly? She is a master at statistical probability. If she was a superhero, that would be her superpower, statistical probability. So Sunrise Mover today came into the party with expectations of 62.2%. So we have that going for us right off the bat, all right? 62.2%, anything over 50%, depending on the profit factor, is good. The higher the profit factor, the better. But a lot of strategies where the average winner is, say, 3 times greater than the average loser, we don't need as high a success rate. But just knowing you got 62.2% right off the bat, that's a feather in our cap, what we could call gold star number 1. Now, when we see this play right here, maybe you've heard us talk about this before, if you're new. At the same time that Holly was calling this with the probability, we're seeing a nice little range break pattern here. And we could call that gold star number 2. Then in addition to that, you might also notice when you click on this stock here and consulted your single stock window, or maybe another window like a top list that you can view volume in the smaller time frames, we see that the 5-minute volume was going pretty bonkers at that time. So you got a nice pattern with statistical probability and high volume. Wow, that's like 3 things lining up. Gives us a great deal of confidence. We've got our stop loss already mapped out for us right here in the red. We've got our profit target mapped out up here. Everything's on the chart for you. You got statistical probability. Boom. We can see what happens. Now sometimes they go immediately, and I'm sure we're going to take a look at some here in a moment where they don't just blast off like this. They might hug this line for a little bit. They might hug it for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes sometimes, because statistical probability is good for the day. It's just that the timing is different for every trade. They might hug this line for a little bit before they go, but in this case, boom, it was just off to the races. Now, why did Holly close the trade? Well, we can see here that her time stop expired. Every strategy that you see here is configured around a specific hold time. Sunrise Mover, one of the shorter time frames, 30 minutes. And that just happens to coincide with the dark shading that we see here with Holly. So Holly gets out right here. Now, from a trader's perspective, I'm in the trade, it moves up nicely, kind of stair steps up, and then it kind of starts to flatten out right here. So if I see Holly getting out right here, that's Holly getting out, risk off. I have options. I can look at this and go, well, this thing looks like it's working. It's consolidating, it's taking a little breather. Maybe it continues when it busts out of there. In this case, it did. So going risk on is a lot simpler than it appears to be some of the times, because you don't have to pick risk off or risk on before the day starts. This is just showing you what's going on depending on what risk factor we're taking into consideration here. But if we're seeing this nice little smooth area right here, we can easily go, well, okay, I see Holly getting out, but you know what, I'm going to stay in the trade because there's really nothing that's making me feel like this thing's going to back off. I'm seeing this nice little consolidation, and it might continue, in which case it did. And in that case, you had a lot more profit potential than what Holly locked in and risk off. Matter of fact, right here, it's up 96 cents. Up here, it was up a lot more, well over a point. So the goal is, let's try to get something in between this spread here between risk off and risk on. Anywhere in the middle would be fine. Obviously, the closer to risk on we can try to get, the better. But there's definitely the ability, when you see the risk on continue from the risk off, to capture some additional alpha. And you can even do a little bit of both. You can say, okay, I'm in 200. I see Holly getting out. I'm going to do half of the risk off. And if the chart dictates it, we'll do half of the risk on. But just a beautiful example of going risk on there. Now this little guy right here, I mean, here we go with this guy, not quite as a developed pattern here, but a range break nonetheless. And then this guy right here, you know, once again, a nice pretty little consolidation break before Holly calls it out. And once again, we've got the same motif going on here, but with a different strategy. We got Nickelback issuing the play this time. He came in at a smooth 60%. So once again, knowing that you have statistical probability on your side is huge. Most people are not incorporating statistical probability into their trading routines. I'd say if you interviewed a group of 100 traders out there, most of them are going to know what statistical probability is, but they won't be actively incorporating it into their trading routine. More than likely because it's difficult to do. You need advanced models, you need heavy computing power if you want to do it and do it well. And that's what we do. That's what Holly does, right? So once again, you know right off the bat you've got statistical probability on your side. We see the range has just been broken. Holly gives the play here. This is doing what I was describing earlier. We get a nice push, but then we gravitate back down to the entry line, spend a little time underneath, and then pop back up. And then, of course, we can continue to play that range break game by drawing a line up here and seeing that, yes, indeed, timing, this one just took a little bit longer. We were never at risk of getting stopped out down here. And a lot of the times, if we missed the trade or maybe we were doing something else, we didn't have time to interact with this trade, but we look over and we see Holly is negative on a position. So we didn't even see it up here. We just saw, hey, Holly's in a position and she's slightly down in it because we're actively monitoring her blotter. Well, if that were the case and we see it hovering down here, this is the time where you actually have an opportunity to get a better price than Holly. It's butting up against this little level. It's not tempting our stop loss at all. You can actually get a better price here, or if you're already in 100 lot here, or 200 lot, and it backs off a little bit, opportunity to pick up more. Keep in mind, stop loss is there for a reason. We'll see Holly get out of positions early just to protect her profit, but keep that in mind. Her superpower is the statistical probability. So once again, a nice easy play, takes a second dip through there and then off to the races. So a good example of it regressing back down to the line and then catching and then going higher for the day. Once again, why did Holly get out? Well, this time, look, she only booked a 9-cent profit in this trade. Once again, she's not the best at getting out. She's just not going to let a positive turn into a negative. And the longer this trade stays without moving, and the more volatile it gets, the more likely she is just to cut the cord, because she's not proficient at reading these charts in the capacity that we are. That's why we always say the best way to interact with this technology is man interacting with the machine, you know, forming that chimera, because that's what the market dictates right now. So when we look at the trade, Holly was in this trade, let's see, 30 minutes. Not quite 20 minutes. She pulled the plug early because she didn't want to let this positive turn into a negative, which is what we've programmed her to do. But trying to capture somewhere in between 9 cents and 62 cents, it wouldn't have been that hard to stay in that trade, just sticking with our initial stop loss here. Now, this next little guy, at one time today, just happened to be the biggest percentage gainer today. AUPH, this was up as high as 7% when the session was still in effect. Not the biggest mover from a dollar standpoint, but definitely the biggest mover from a percentage standpoint, which pretty big deal. And once again, we can see right here was the entry signal for Holly, and once again a little dip down once the signal is generated. So Holly spits it out here, immediately out of the money a little bit, but not too bad. It is a $7 stock. You know, we're playing it right here around 7 and change, 707 to be exact, but maybe down here to the whole number, which is another thing to point out. Stocks do weird things at whole numbers. People have entire strategies based around whole number breaks because there's lots of orders on the books, sell orders, buy orders, all kinds of things, typically at those whole numbers. And of course, just like magic, it bounced right off that whole number, wicked back up, forming this little hammer, and then taking back off again. So once again, an opportunity where you could have gotten a better price with Holly or than Holly, and you know, get in the habit of actually setting. When you see something go below the Holly entry line, just right click, set a price alert. That way you will not miss it. Of course, I'm guilty of forgetting to do that as well, but the more and more you repeat that, you know, the fewer times you'll forget moving forward. So, you know, once again, once you're in this trade and you've been made aware, hey, I've got statistical probability. And of course, you know, different strategies produced all of these. The AUPH, strong stock pulling back. And that's exactly what you see. There's that little pullback, and Holly signaling the trade, which came into the day at 64.4%. We got that going for us right off the bat here. Moves higher. If we manage to stay in the trade here, once we see this high put in and we see this little consolidation area taking place, get in the habit. Set that price alert again to see if this next range break occurs, because that's always a good time to really leverage your position because we've identified the buyer early in the day. So, you know, stocks don't, you know, some stocks go straight up, but most of them don't. So when we see this top put in and then a regression here, get in the habit of setting a price alert here. 736 would have been right outside of there. And if we get in the habit of doing this, we're going to be getting a lot more high quality data our way, because when it sneaks back up here and we're already sitting in 100, 200 with a nice, easy, pain-free ride, and it sneaks back up here, starts breaking that line again, and look, a little sideways, plenty of time to add to that position before we got that third leg kicking on up to highs of the day there. So by identifying the buyers early in these nice statistically weighted patterns with Holly, we can really get into the habit of identifying, okay, if this thing keeps going, these are the levels where I can definitely add to my positions. And then of course we did have a, you know, let's not just look at the winners, let's look at the losers as well. You know, we had SQM just flat out ran into a wall up here and didn't work. Now this is where Holly's reduced risk functionality can definitely play in our advantage, because it just wouldn't work, and the longer she sits in the stock and it's not going her way, the more apt she's going to be to either take the reduced risk or the profit save option and bail. And so in this case, she locks in 16 cents of negative or a 16 cent loss. Had she stayed in it, it would have been a 52-cent loss. So other than that one, not a whole, you know, not a lot of excitement going on in these losers, keeping the losers small, and you know, they are the shorter end of the spectrum here, which is what we want to see. All right, so I didn't know if somebody was texting me a question there. Looks like it's not for me. All right, perfect.
Now we're getting taken care of. No, notice that nothing was stopped out today. Interesting.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge in and of itself, which leads me, I always forget to put this column on there and save it, but let's just do a little experiment here. Max profit, where are you at? Okay, so let me just kick this guy over here for a minute. All right, so on 20 trades today, max profit is only looking at risk off. Now, this means that all of these plays were in the money by this much today. Now, these guys were at zero. Let me resort that because I think, okay, there we go. All right. So these guys never got into the money, right? That's not too surprising considering they were the losers. This guy did get into the money by 6 cents before it rolled over. And, you know, so that is amazing in and of itself. If you put on 20 trades on any given trading day and all of them except 2 are in the money at some point in time, that's not an easy feat to pull off, because getting in the money is half the battle, and then managing that profit and trying to predict, okay, do I want to take the money or do I want to hold on for more? That's the game we play. And of course, the more the better, all dependent upon the price action of the stock, the volume, the patterns, so forth and so on. But just having been in the money at some point on all these trades, that's a pretty impressive feat in and of itself. Because I can tell you, and Steve can tell you, and Andy can tell you, and Dan can tell you, and Brad can tell you, boy, if back in the old days when we were kind of learning to trade the old SOS system with getting punched in the face, we called it learn by bloody nose, learn what not to do. I mean, half the time we'd get into a position and a little seesaw, we'd be down 25, 50 cents immediately, just waiting for those market levels to come back in. You know, pretty unnerving. So, you know, a lot of these positions, if you can immediately be in the green and experience very minimal pain, that works wonders for your psyche as a trader, believe me. Okay, so Holly put on a pretty good show today. Lots of alpha to be had. A lot of pullbacks from these guys, but the path that she put us on today was one of pretty dang good opportunity, especially for a low market today, or low volume market today, where the statistical probability, that was the game to be played today, as we can see from Holly's charts. So now I'd like to talk about taking the information and the plays that Holly has shown us and continuing to use some of these that meet certain criteria in using them as watch list and price alerts moving forward. And to help frame this, I'm going to pull my price alerts over here. And first, we're going to take a look at this guy. Now, let me resort this by when they were created. All of these guys were created today. These are all the ones I'm going to share with you guys, with the exception of Snap. Of course, it's the only thing I have up there that's short for obvious reasons. But I'm going to share all these guys with you, and then we're going to add the, what was the one Steve was talking about? The Pandora. Before we're done today. But we're going to use this one as an example. BZUN was created back on the 10th of this month, and you can see my notes. It hadn't went yet, but it was a Holly play. So I'm like, okay, when it cracks back through that entry level, we're going to take the, you know, we're going to pay attention to the second, Holly's second try. Now, should have already populated. Here's the daily. So here's where Holly was playing it, right? We can also see what's happening on the daily. It's a range break, but it's on the daily time frame, you know, because this pattern can appear on daily and intraday. It's fractal. That's why we love it so. That's why it also makes a lot of sense. But in any case, it was popping out of here, so I'm like, okay, let's continue to monitor it, because a lot of times once they pop out of here, some of them go immediately, some of them take a little time to get some traction. But you can see what that position is now up from the 10th, up almost 4 points, catching a nice little run because it's broken out of this area, and there's nothing over here for it to bump its head into. I mean, that was, let's see here, not that one. So all of these stocks that Holly produced today, like for example, EXAS was one of the stocks that was in the money today, and Holly bailed on the profit save, which we can see right here. So this is the one that worked out pretty favorable for her. She bailed for 13 cents, and then the stock rolled over, went through that line, and had she not bailed, would have cost her another 40 some odd cents there for a total loss of 52 cents. But having said that, this is still a very interesting play moving forward because of what we have going on right here. It's percolating. It got out, it popped up today, but it's one that you're going to want to know about when it breaks this level right here. The next one, let's see, X is Cyrex, all right. Holly, it was kind of a non-event for her today, up 2 cents, risk on, minus 3 cents. Nothing too spectacular, but look what it's doing on the daily. It is out of its box from here. Is it going to continue? Maybe. Is it going to go sideways a little bit? Maybe. But if we go ahead and set our price alert, whether it opens up and just bullies through here tomorrow, you're going to want to take a look at it. If it goes sideways, you won't get the alert. It could go sideways for 4, 5, 6, 2 weeks. But just because we have it in here, when it does transpire, when it happens, we're going to know about it. And sometimes these things will consolidate sideways for days or weeks. But when they pop, we definitely want to know about them. So we're going to, if we keep going through here, LGIH, another stock that was a pretty good winner from Holly's perspective today. Here we are on the intraday and the signal and what it's been doing. And then of course, this looks familiar. Later on the day, it pops again and heads higher. What does it look like? Well, it's out of its little cage right here today. Looking to the left, nothing but blue sky. So these are all going to be very good things. And of course, I went through and only included the ones that have blue sky on the long-term daily. So this is a great way to amplify and parlay the information that Holly's feeding us on a daily basis. This little guy got real frisky today, popped up here, came down, but of course we're seeing the same thing happen right here.
So just to paraphrase with somebody else's voice, you're not looking at Holly trades that are in a deep downtrend and a bounce, or a Holly trade that's, kind of showing itself in the middle of a range. You're focusing on the ones that look really good on the daily chart for a possible breakout 2.0.
That is correct. That is correct. Moving forward, let's see, the LGYH. Let me find that trade again today. All right. So the interesting thing about LGYH is it had all types of volume going through it today. So after I saw it come through here on Holly and continue higher, it also came across this other window that everybody hears me talk about all the time, which was, and this is really great when this happens because we have all kinds of positive factors on a lot of these trades today. And then in addition to that, when you have the same trade that Holly called, and you might be already in it, and then you see it come across one of your other windows, even better. It's just additional affirmation. And a lot of these stocks, typically, especially the ones that are breaking out to all-time highs, if I can find where my window went here, then since that's what this window right here is looking for, you may see them also scroll across here as well, LGIH. So when you see that, and that was, LGIH, this was all over this no resistance high volume ticker again today as well. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this little guy was spitting out lots of gold nuggets today. Here's a nice range break that happened later in the day. And people always hear me talk about the simple pattern that we're seeing here, the fact that they can occur at any point in the day. Buyer came out late in the day here. We get the signal about right here as it cracks this line. Of course, they don't always just run like this guy. And when we look at this daily candle here, wow, Talk about a guy that just went and went and went and just gave back just the tip of the candle. Don't know what this little guy is going to do tomorrow, but it'd probably be worth having on your list. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop not only this window into the chat area, I'm going to also drop in that compare count window that I showed you guys at the beginning, which is useful. It's like taking the temperature of the market in the first 20 minutes and going, fever? No, no fever. Looks about average temperature, maybe slightly below temperature. But when you start to see the higher temperatures, either to the downside or to the upside, that's your little clue to set your expectations for the day. And then also, I'm going to drop the price alerts in there as well. So Steve, anything you want to add or comment on while I get these guys dropped in the chat, by all means.
No, just other than the typical sermon to the newer traders, please don't be impatient. This is something that takes weeks and months to really adapt to. The market is a fire hose of data coming at you, and what Jamie just did was try to figure out a way to take that fire hose of data and turn it into a smaller trickle hose that we can more manage and be prepared for if things do happen. So, new traders, my sermon is please do not try to be profitable in the first month or two. You're just going to wind up probably making a lot of very expensive mistakes. Myself and Andy, we trained together at the same time back in '98, and we laughed. It was about 5 or 6 months before we really started seeing the forest through the trees and developing a method and kind of understanding what was happening. So make your mistakes, because you're going to make them, but make them cheap. Start off paper trading and then see the difference between paper trading with real live, maybe 50 shares or 100 shares, but very, very small size, so you can start to feel what the emotions are like of watching profits and loss come and go on your screen, and see how well your mind stays disciplined and staying on course and not jumping ship and changing your mind. So just please take it slow. You're going to make mistakes. Make your mistakes cheap and then learn from them, because everybody pays their tuition in the first few months of learning how to trade and what's going on around them. It's not a science. It's definitely an art form. So find a way that works for you. And that's really, to the new traders who are just trying to figure this all out.
Okay, we need to add this Pandora. Obviously, this AUPH must be trading after market. Let's see, is it? Doesn't look like it's trading. That was just an example that I used. Let me get rid of that guy. We're going to go ahead and get rid of the Bison. Just want to leave that one in there as an example. I'll go ahead and remove the snap. You guys want to add it back, feel free. So now we're going to do Pandora. What was the symbol on Pandora again, Steve?
P.
Just P, straight up P. There we go.
Straight up P.
All right. And so it's out. Which level are we going to use again? Just the high of the day, high of today? Steve?
Oh, I went on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, let me check my price alerts here. I've got that set for Pandora at 952.
952, price rises, trend change. All right, get the old shift and collaborate here. Copy. All right, so everybody has access. All you do is copy that line of code, and it will add all these price alerts to your price alert window. Easy as pie.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, we got 5 minutes left. Scott, if you're waiting in the wings, I think we're ready for you.
Great, thank you. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we are in the middle of the test drive, and you can learn about that What slide are we going to be on? Okay. Thanks. Yeah, so we're just starting the July test drive. This is Monday, but we're allowing registration through Wednesday. So registration has been extended. As long as you register before midnight on Wednesday, you still get 5 full days of premium access for the test drive. So that means, for example, if you register Wednesday night, you're going to have Thursday, Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. But the real test drive, the meat of it is during this week, so we recommend everyone get on board today so you can enjoy the best of our support as Jamie and Steve went over in the beginning of the webinar. We're having special sessions in addition to the trading room every morning. There's also a 4-hour webinar starting at 10 a.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern. During which you can ask questions, get product demos, learn everything about the premium features you're trying out and how to use trade ideas. Additionally, there's of course the trading room, which is always open during trading hours, and that's a great resource to see current trade ideas members using trade ideas in real time, calling out trades, moderated by Barry Anderson, our trading room moderator. It's all good stuff. Hop on board, try Holly, try the AI, try our back testing module, everything. Just go to trade-ideas.com/test drive and get your key. We have a product code today that is good this month if you want to go ahead and join Trade Ideas. It's Sunny, all caps. Just use that for 15% off your first month or year of Trade Ideas. Remember that both standard and premium versions of Trade Ideas include a full hour of one-on-one training with Jamie or Steve or Andy, so go ahead and sign on to that. Sign up for the training as soon as you become a subscribing member. Also, we have a handout for you. It's maybe it didn't upload correctly. Let me jiggle the handle. It looks like it's there. If you expand the handouts panel, there should be able to download a PDF that's got some helpful links for you regarding today's webinar. Thanks everyone for joining us. The recording will be up later tonight or tomorrow, and you get an email follow-up. You can reach out to Jamie or Steve directly using the emails on your screen. Or like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Jamie's at QuantBot, Steve's at Today Trader, Dan Merkin's Trade Ideas 1. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, Steve. Have a good one.
All right.
Hey, thanks
See you
everybody
tomorrow.
for showing up. Take care. See you tomorrow.